This week we're talking about, you guessed it, AI. But I think what we want to do is bring this into context of smart buildings. And I think the difference between technology and property-based or real estate-based or space-based technology is location. And one of the main things we're always trying to understand is occupancy. And we use that for reporting, obviously, on analytics and usage of space, but also for real-time experiences. If there's 10 people over that zone, what do you want to happen? Turn on the aircon, turn on the lights, whatever those outcomes are. So there's different reasons to track occupancy in different industry verticals, and that's what we're going to talk about today. And then we're going to sort of touch on how AI plays a role in some of this, particularly computer vision. So let's go through each of these areas, starting with, we'll go outside of workplace. We're always talking about workplace, but we do have example projects in other areas and ambitions to move into other areas we haven't ever worked in before. So we'll talk about those as we go. I'll start with one actually that is recent. We put a proposal together recently and we won this proposal for an energy company using occupancy for safety workflows. So if you know where people are, you can trigger safety events, or if someone's working in isolation, we can check in on them and have the system see if they're safe. If they're not moving, then we can send them a message, or we could bring up security footage and literally check in on that person. The way other areas are using it, what about retail? And there's been some news in like AI retail space lately,
with Amazon revealing that their AI was actually 1,000 people in India.
Yes,
checking everything manually, or 70% of it anyway.
So they had like a typical use case that we're looking for, like people tracking and then automation, and their automation was automatic checkout, so you didn't have to get out your wallet and pay. It just charges your Amazon account in the background. You just walk out with your groceries. But yeah, they weren't using computer vision. They were just sending the footage and having people do the intelligence, so human intelligence.
I mean, I think their aim was to have the AI eventually do it.
Yeah.
So those people were validating the AI and trying to create training data. But yeah, they sort of weren't very honest about how they were going about it. So they sold it as pure AI, and really it was 70% human with a little bit of AI.
It's a trap in technology, right? It's you sometimes companies overpromise because they think they can get there. So they're saying, "Oh, it's possible to do this."
Yeah.
And hopefully by the time we get going, we'll work it out. But in their case, it didn't happen. Or sometimes it's the economics getting in the way. Maybe it was possible with more compute power, more processing.
Yeah.
But they didn't want to assign it for the outcomes. The return on investment probably wasn't there for them.
Yeah, 100%. For someone as big as Amazon, I feel like it would have been return on investment. But also the latest AI developments mean there's probably a better way to do what they were trying to do.
Yeah.
So that computer vision might be useful when and LLMs are effectively as good as humans at a lot of tasks. So maybe an LLM can do it, but we're not at the point where an LLM's cheap enough to make it viable.
Yeah, with that multimodal like computer vision with LLM replacing the 1,000 employees.
Yeah, exactly.
that were reviewing the footage.
Yeah.
So in retail, one of the other common things we're doing a lot of is more traditional logic-based occupancy workflows. So, for example, cleaning. So if there's been 100 people in a space, then it probably needs cleaning. Or if we're tracking people in remote areas like public parks, if there's no one going to the public restrooms in the public parks, we're not going to send the park ranger 20 kilometers to restock the bathrooms. So there's so many different things with occupancy. I think what it's sort of expected, right? Anything smart building, we need to know occupancy.
Yeah.
I think what is more interesting though is, well, what else can we detect? Like cleaning, for example, we could now probably detect spills that have happened, or other object recognition that can cross-reference the occupancy or people counting data.
Yeah, 100%. And there's other interesting technologies that make it possible. especially when you're talking about remote stuff like toilets in parks, or where the barbecue area needs a clean or
because
something.
how do you get a network out there in the first place? That's where
Exactly.
like new sensing technologies
And
coming
things like Wi-Fi Halo, which allow a bit more data than LoRaWAN, for instance.
Yeah.
So now you can actually get an image out to an LLM to decide. So you could do edge AI processing to detect a few different things, like has there been people here, things like that.
Yeah.
And then if there has been people, does it now need cleaning?
Yeah.
And an LLM can make that determination potentially.
And even it could be extended again into those safety workflows. If these are remote areas and we have now like sensors that can connect to a network remotely, like across a national park, then people get lost all the time, right? And there's things we could start adding to this, where some of these fundamentals are taken care of with the wide range network or the mesh network, so things can be connected even if they're a long way from any cell tower. Plus like the ability for pretty much infinite IP addresses with IPv6.
And you can do things like, are people taking dogs into national parks where they're not allowed? On walking trails. And in real time be notified, oh, this person's brought a dog in.
Or invasive species and tracking that and having data and analytics on that for planning and areas I know you're involved in as one of your side projects. But so what other what other things can we do? Like if we're counting people, that's expected. Then it's like, well, what is that person doing? That's the what we can start to implement.
And one of the things that governments do a lot is put the little road car counting sensors and things like that, and I usually put them in remote spots. I know if I go mountain biking, there's sometimes a counter to try and work out how many people are mountain biking. But that would be a manual data collection, so you could have AI being like, oh, there were 30 people walking and one person mountain biking, which you wouldn't be able to get or determine from just having a wheel sensor.
Just those rubber mats they sort of roll out, right? And that's just a dumb counter, and it does it even know what direction people are going?
No.
So it could be counting people twice if they back up or or whatever it may be. But to add more context, like it could be demographic information. It's just more than counting, and we're so used to thinking about solutions in terms of that, like people count, that we forget. Oh, actually, we can do more than people count. We can tell you like an age range of all these people in this space and start breaking down space analytics. Even I was trying to avoid mentioning workplace, but even in the workplace, we could have usage by demographic. It might open a can of worms for HR department to if you want to start looking at data that way. It's up to HR to work that out if they want that, if it's useful to them.
But it might help if people are cold in the office or something like that. Like it's majority women and they're all feeling cold.
Well, that would be the assumption that we could test with a model like this. I mean, there is some like actual science to back that up, that women run colder, literally, and maybe perceive cold differently. And we all have that example. I mean, we essentially work in a adjacent to HVAC industry, right? And everyone says the same thing when they have these controls. It's a battle in the office. But there's always that's what data's great at. There's always rules to the exception or outliers that we can see. That it's not always following that. But I mean, there could be some really useful ways that can help, like delivering different interfaces to different people based on demographic information, or just really personalizing space. And to achieve personalization, we need to know like as much context about what people are doing as possible. And I think that context is there with computer vision, moving beyond just the people counting. Look, I think that's our key point here, is that we used to think about occupancy plus automation. Now we can think of occupancy with context and automation. And it's just giving us this extra layer that we can start achieving in any industry vertical. I want to do a couple more examples. The retail, we spoke about it previously, like the Bunnings example.
Putting your hand up.
You put your hand up and the camera sees that and notifies a service provider. or the retailers to come and help you. I actually read recently, or someone told me that Bunnings in Australia is the most valuable brand
Oh, really?
in terms of like everyone loves Bunnings.
Hmm.
And part of the reason they love Bunnings is when they go there, one, it's a fun place to go because you can buy lots of interesting tools, and I bought a chainsaw from there once, and that was fun. But also the customer service is very high level, so you can go in and say, I don't know how to do anything. Can you tell me how to build a bird feeder or something? And they can give you step-by-step instructions, tell you all the stuff to buy, and they're like pretty consistent with that customer service. So supporting that is with a workflow such as like, hey, I don't see anybody. I want that customer service, and I just put my hand up, which is something people sort of know to do because we're sort of conditioned. Hey, I need help, and that can trigger something automatically.
Yeah, and I mean, even Bunnings staff doing it to demonstrate to users, because like sometimes you talk to the person that works in the electronics department about wood, and they're like,
Yeah, you could even have different hand gestures for different departments to come and help you. Like do a heavy metal sign, and that brings the metal team
which aisle you're in. Although you could be in the completely wrong aisle, I guess.
But that's good segue into the other areas, like what Amazon were trying to do with like stock levels, basically automatic stock reporting, and then charging the customer. We could have analytics on people flow through aisles where the popular areas are, but also monitor if you train the computer vision on the objects on the stock, then we can monitor stock levels in retail or warehousing scenarios.
And tie it in with checkout and things like that, so you can actually check, take a photo of that particular item, and then once enough have gone through checkout, you can be like, okay, that's definitely getting low now, or we think there should be 2 left and there's none. And you can be like, okay, something's happened.
And that demographic info from the computer vision allows you to run like these large physical retail stores, like an online store. If we know there's a bunch of people at Bunnings that have their dog with them, we could make announcements about the pet aisle, or to tailor the experience to the customers that are there and the context. And if you're not from Australia, Bunnings is like the hardware store, like is it mega store, like what do they have in the US?
I feel like digital signage in a supermarket would be really effective, because like you don't know what's on special, and you'd have to walk down every aisle. But if they had some context about who you are and what you like, then they might be able to target ads that appeal to you.
Or just tailor the customer service, tailor the ads.
You've got a kid. This toy's on sale now. Obviously, the kid's the one making the choice at that point.
That's right. Well, if that's why all these things are low level, so they can grab it and put it into the shopping trolley, which I've noticed myself now walking Lars around. He loves to grab things, and even if he doesn't want it, well, like if I take it away, he'll start crying. So I'll let him hold it. But if we take this to another industry vertical, aged care is another one where there's some obvious examples. Again, I don't want to open the can of worms of privacy. We're talking examples where, of course, you have to consider privacy, the perception and the reality of privacy. But as we always say, you can spend your privacy to get useful features. One of those in aged care could be monitoring patients, and if they have dementia or if there's a reason they can't leave the facility, you could dynamically like lock doors to keep them where they need to be. It feels sort of harsh saying that, but
when you've got a dementia patient that doesn't know where they are and maybe gets violent.
The alternative is they're out on the street, and so if we can do it with computer vision, it means maybe less human resources required to monitor and keep them where they need to be.
And in terms of privacy, like obviously you'd edge process as much as possible, so there's not actually images going out, and maybe if there's an emergency detected, it'll send an image, but you can really lock that down so that you're not spying on people effectively.
Exactly. So the data is the important thing, not the
metadata.
The camera is just there to get the data, not to stream it out to anyone unless it needs to be. But aged care has a lot of workflows where you want to know the context of people taking medicine, There's various checklists that all the clinicians and the nurses and the doctors have to go through every time they see a patient.
Yeah.
If we can like monitor that and say, oh, actually you didn't perform this task, or the patient hasn't taken this medicine today. There's context we can get from the computer vision, but we can cross-reference that with other systems, which can help stock levels of medicine and a whole range of things. So it's very open-ended when we start breaking down. Like, it's not just about occupancy and people counting. It's like everything else.
Yeah. So many different situations you could use it in. The medicine ones actually sounds really interesting. I'm sure hospitals would love being able to determine who's taking what medicines out of the restricted cabinets and things like that.
Yep, for security, for compliance, for as soon as the clinician walks out of the room, do they spit out the the pill they're meant to be taking? Like various levels of controls and like the privacy of this, how far you want to go, but you can go very far if needed. Just deciding what's suitable for each patient.
I mean, it seems suitable. Like most of those rooms that have like highly secure medicine cabinets will have a camera, but the camera's just there so that if you do the wrong thing and you get caught, they can prove it later.
Yes.
Instead of proactively preventing,
like most security systems. So I think that's just in general across the board. You're not checking your security footage until something's happened.
Yeah.
Which that's something that's going to change rapidly. There's going to be a lot more real-time workflows coming out of security cameras.
Yeah. Even like Ring doorbells will probably detect people stealing your packages and be like, someone took your package.
Yeah.
You can just automatically call the police.
Yeah. Or send a drone chasing them down the street.
Yeah.